"You were never strong enough for me," he said, loud enough for the nobles to hear. The entire ballroom was laughing. Liora Ashwood stood alone at the center of her ex-mate's wedding, and Evan Blackthorn was enjoying every second of it. His bride smirked, the guests whispered, and Liora felt something inside her crack. She turned to leave when suddenly the doors slammed shut and the most powerful alpha in the realm stood up. She never should have gone, but when her ex invited her to his wedding, she thought she could handle it. Until the whispers started, the mocking stares, the humiliation. She ran from that hall in tears, broken and alone. But someone followed her into the night, the most powerful wolf in the realm, a guest who'd witnessed her pain. And in that moment of devastation, everything changed. This is a story about finding love in your darkest hour, about discovering that sometimes the right person sees you when everyone else looks away.
Liora Ashwood stared at the cream-colored envelope on her kitchen table like it was a coiled snake ready to strike. The elegant calligraphy mocked her with its perfection. Mr. Evan Blackthorn and Miss Seraphina Silvercrest request the honor of your presence at their union ceremony. Her hands shook as she set it down, the paper suddenly too heavy to hold. 3 months. It had been 3 months since Evan had looked her in the eyes and spoken the words that shattered her world. I, Evan Blackthorn, reject you, Liora Ashwood, as my mate. The mate bond, that sacred connection between wolves that was supposed to be unbreakable, had snapped like a brittle twig. The pain had dropped her to her knees, right there in the forest clearing where they'd first met, where he'd first kissed her, where she'd foolishly believed their future was written in the stars. Your wolf is too weak, he'd said, not even having the decency to sound regretful. My pack needs strength. My family expects me to mate with someone who can produce powerful heirs. You're not enough, Liora. Not enough. Those words had echoed in her mind every day since, through the physical pain of the severed bond, through the sleepless nights, through the pitying looks from pack members who'd watched her and Evan together for 3 years, believing they were meant to be. Now this, an invitation to watch him marry Seraphina Silvercrest, daughter of the Silver Moon Pack's Beta, a she-wolf with a bloodline that traced back to the original wolf clans, with a wolf form so magnificent it was said to shimmer like moonlight on water. Everything Liora wasn't. You're not seriously considering going? Her best friend Maya appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, her amber eyes flashing with protective anger. This is cruel, Lee. He's rubbing your face in it. The Evan we thought we knew wouldn't do this, which means we never really knew him at all. Maybe he wants closure. Maybe this is his way of what? Apologizing? Making amends? Maya's laugh was bitter. Wolves don't invite their rejected mates to their weddings out of kindness. This is a power play. He wants you to see him move on, to make sure you know exactly what you lost. Liora finally met her friend's eyes. I need to show him I've moved on too, that I'm fine, that he didn't break me. But did he break you? The question hung in the air between them. Liora wanted to say no, wanted to believe she'd picked up the pieces and put herself back together, but the truth was more complicated. The rejection had changed her, made her smaller, made her doubt everything she thought she knew about herself and her place in the pack hierarchy. Her wolf, the spirit that should have been her source of strength and pride, had retreated deep inside her after the rejection. Where other wolves could shift at will, accessing their power and instincts easily, Liora struggled. Her transformations were incomplete, painful. Her wolf wouldn't fully emerge, as if it too believed it wasn't enough. I'm going, Liora said quietly. I need this, Maya. I need to face him one more time and prove to him and to myself that I've survived. Maya studied her for a long moment, then sighed. Fine, but I'm coming with you, and if anyone so much as looks at you wrong, I'm shifting and taking out their ankles. Consequences be damned. Despite everything, Liora smiled. Deal.
The week leading up to the wedding passed in a blur of anxiety and second-guessing. Liora changed her mind a dozen times, but each time she decided not to go, her pride pulled her back. She wouldn't let Evan win, wouldn't let him have the satisfaction of knowing she was too wounded to face him. She bought a dress, deep emerald green that brought out the unusual golden flecks in her hazel eyes. Nothing too flashy, nothing that screamed she was trying too hard, just elegant enough to show she was doing fine without him. The night before the wedding, Maya stayed over, and they sat on Leora's small apartment balcony overlooking the forest that marked the edge of the Moonhaven territory. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said, nursing a glass of wine. "Do you still love him?" Liora was quiet for a long time. "I love who I thought he was. The Evan who brought me wildflowers on my birthday, who stayed up all night with me when my mom was sick, who told me my wolf was beautiful, even when it was small and uncertain." She took a breath. "But that Evan either never existed or he died somewhere along the way. The man who rejected me, the one marrying Serafina, I don't know him at all." "Good," Maya said firmly, "because you deserve so much better. You deserve someone who sees your worth, who doesn't care about bloodlines or pack politics, someone who chooses you every single day. You're a good friend. The best friend, which is why I'm going to make sure tomorrow doesn't destroy you." But as Liora lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, she couldn't shake the feeling that tomorrow would change everything. She just didn't know how. The ceremony was being held at Silvercrest Manor, the ancestral home of Serafina's family. It was a sprawling estate on the northern edge of Pack territory, all stone and ivy and old money, the kind of place that announced wealth and power before you even walked through the door. Liora and Maya arrived exactly on time, not early enough to seem eager, not late enough to draw attention. They debated strategy like generals planning a battle. Stay in the back, don't make eye contact, get through the ceremony, and leave during the reception. Clean, simple, painless. Except the moment Liora walked through the manor's entrance, she knew something was wrong. Heads turned. Not just a few curious glances, but deliberate, calculated stares. Wolves from various packs. She recognized members of the Silver Moon Pack, the Ridge Runners, even some from the distant Mountain Peak territory, all watching her enter. And they were smiling, not friendly smiles, sharp, knowing smiles that made her skin crawl. "Lee," Liora whispered, her hand finding Leora's elbow. "Something's off." "I know." As they made their way toward the seating area, Liora noticed something else that made her pulse quicken. This wasn't just a pack wedding. The guest list included wolves of significant standing, alphas from major territories, members of the Council of Elders, even representatives from the royal court. And there, being escorted to a place of honor near the front, was someone who made every wolf in the room seem to dim by comparison. Alpha King Kaelan Nightshade. Liora had never seen him in person, but every wolf in the realm knew him by reputation. He was the oldest and most powerful alpha, ruler of the Shadow Moon Pack, and sovereign over all wolf territories. He lived in the old castle in the northern reaches, a place of legend where only the strongest wolves dared to go. He was tall, imposing even among other wolves. His black hair was pulled back, revealing a face that was all sharp angles and controlled power. Even from across the room, she could feel the weight of his presence, the authority that radiated from him like heat from a fire. What was the Alpha King doing at Evan's wedding? Maya noticed him too. "Holy shit," she breathed. "Is that—" "The Alpha King," Liora confirmed. "Why would he be here?"
The Silvercrest family has old royal connections, and Evan's been climbing the social ladder. Maybe he pulled strings to get royal attendance, make the wedding seem more important than it is. That sounded exactly like something Evan would do. They found seats near the back, tucked against the wall, but even as they sat, they felt the weight of watching eyes, heard the whispers that weren't quite loud enough. Can't believe she actually came. The audacity, has she no shame? I heard she begged him not to reject her. Pathetic. Each word was a small knife precisely aimed. Maya tensed beside her, her wolf rising close to the surface, ready to defend, but Liora placed a hand on her friend's arm. "Don't," she whispered. "That's what they want, a scene." Why would they want that? Liora didn't have an answer, but the sick feeling in her stomach was growing stronger. The ceremony began with traditional wolf customs. The pack's elders entered first, taking positions around the altar, a raised stone platform carved with ancient runes. Then the Silvercrest family, led by Seraphina's father, his silver hair gleaming in the candlelight.
Liora noticed the Alpha King watching the proceedings with an expression of polite interest. His silver eyes, an unusual color even among wolves, swept across the assembled guests occasionally, assessing, cataloging. For just a moment, his gaze landed on Liora. She felt it like a physical touch. Those silver eyes seemed to see straight through her, reading things she'd tried to hide. But before she could process the intensity of that look, he'd moved on, his attention returning to the ceremony. The music changed. Everyone stood, and Seraphina appeared. She was radiant. There was no other word for it. Her dress was white silk that seemed to glow with its own light, embroidered with silver thread that caught every flicker of flame. Her dark hair was swept up, revealing a graceful neck adorned with moonstones. She moved down the aisle with the confidence of someone who'd never doubted her worth for a single moment. Behind her, Liora caught sight of Evan waiting at the altar. Her breath caught. He looked good. He always had. Tall, broad-shouldered, with that easy smile that had first drawn to him. But now there was something else in his expression, a satisfaction, a triumph. And when his eyes found hers in the crowd, she saw it clearly. He'd wanted her here. The realization hit like a physical blow. The ceremony proceeded with all the formal elements of a traditional wolf mating ritual. The exchange of vows, the blood oath where both wolves cut their palms and clasped hands, binding their lives together, the blessing from the pack elders. Through it all, Liora sat frozen, her mind racing. Why? Why invite her if not for closure? What possible reason? And then it was over. Evan and Seraphina were declared mated, bound until death. The crowd erupted in applause and howls, the wolf's way of celebrating. Liora stood with everyone else, but she felt numb, disconnected. "We can leave now," Maya said urgently. "The ceremony's done. Let's go." But before they could move, a voice rang out across the hall. "Before we adjourn to the reception, the bride would like to say a few words." "No." Seraphina stepped forward, her hand still clasped in Evan's. She smiled, radiant, beautiful, and in that moment, Liora saw the trap snap shut. "Thank you all for joining us on this blessed day," Seraphina began, her voice carrying easily through the silent hall. "I know many of you have traveled far to witness the union of the Blackthorn and Silvercrest lines. This is more than a wedding. It's the joining of two powerful bloodlines, two strong families, two wolves worthy of each other." She paused, letting that sink in. Then her eyes found Liora. Leora's blood ran cold. "I want to acknowledge someone special here today, someone who, in her own way, made this union possible." Leora's blood ran cold. "Liora Ashwood, would you stand, please?" Every eye in the room turned to her. Liora felt Maya's hand grip hers, felt her wolf surge forward protectively, but there was no escape. Standing would be humiliating. Refusing to stand would be worse.
Slowly, Liora rose. Across the room, she saw the Alpha King's attention sharpen, his gaze locking onto her with sudden intensity. Seraphina's smile widened. "I want to thank you for coming today. It takes a special kind of courage to attend the wedding of the man who rejected you. Or perhaps it's not courage. Perhaps it's something else." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Quiet, cruel laughter. "You see, when Evan told me about his first mate bond, about the weak she-wolf he'd been mistakenly paired with, I was horrified. How could the fates have been so cruel? How could they have bound someone of Evan's lineage to someone so inadequate?" Leora's face burned. She wanted to run, to shift, to do anything but stand there and take this, but her body wouldn't move. She didn't dare look toward where the Alpha King sat. Having the realm's most powerful wolf witness her humiliation made it infinitely worse. "But then I realized," Seraphina said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "that it was actually a blessing. Because if you had been strong enough, worthy enough, Evan would never have rejected you, and I would never have found my true mate. So really, we owe you a debt of gratitude. Your weakness gave us this happiness." The laughter was louder now, open, mocking. And then Evan spoke. "I invited you here, Liora," he said, his voice carrying that same satisfaction she'd seen in his eyes, "because I wanted you to see what a real wolf bond looks like. I wanted you to understand that what we had was a mistake the fates made. You were never meant to be mine. This," he gestured to Seraphina, to the grandeur around them, "this is what I was always meant for." Tears burned behind Leora's eyes, but she refused to let them fall, refused to give them that final satisfaction. "I also wanted everyone here to see," Evan continued, addressing the room now, "what I was strong enough to reject, even when it hurt, because that's what real wolves do. We make hard choices. We put our packs first. We don't settle for less than we deserve." From the corner of her eye, Liora saw the Alpha King's expression change. The polite interest was gone, replaced by something cold and dangerous. His hands gripped the armrests of his chair, and even from across the room, she could sense his wolf rising to the surface, barely contained. Maya was shaking beside her, barely holding her wolf back. Around them, guests whispered and stared. Some looked uncomfortable, but most seemed entertained. This was theater to them, a public rejection, a demonstration of power. Leora's wolf, dormant for so long, suddenly stirred, but not with strength, with pain, with the crushing weight of every insecurity, every doubt, every moment she'd wondered if she was enough. She'd been right. She wasn't enough, would never be enough. The room swam. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. She had to get out. Without a word, Liora turned and walked toward the exit, not running, she wouldn't give them that, but moving with as much dignity as she could muster. Maya followed immediately, her hand on Leora's back, guiding and supporting. Behind them, she heard Seraphina's voice, sticky sweet and triumphant. "Thank you again for coming, Liora. Your presence made this day perfect." More laughter followed them out. Liora made it through the entrance hall and out the manor's front doors before the first sob broke free. She stumbled down the steps, past the gardens where the reception would be held, toward a secluded path that led into the estate's private woods. "Lee, wait!" Maya called after her, but Liora couldn't stop. She needed to be away from people, away from the stares and the laughter and the crushing weight of her own inadequacy. The path wound through perfectly manicured gardens before reaching a more natural area, a small grove with ancient trees and a stone bench that looked like it had been there for centuries. Liora collapsed onto it and finally let the tears come. 3 months of holding herself together, 3 months of pretending she was fine, 3 months of lies. And for what? To walk into a trap, to be humiliated in front of the most powerful wolves in the realm, to prove to everyone, including herself, that she really was as worthless as Evan believed. "I'm so stupid," she gasped between sobs. "So fucking stupid for going, for thinking I could handle it, for believing you're not stupid." The voice came from behind her, deep, authoritative, but somehow gentle. Male. Liora spun around, her heart leaping into her throat. Alpha King Kaelan Nightshade stood at the edge of the grove, partially hidden in the shadows of the trees. He'd removed his formal jacket, and his shirt sleeves were rolled up, revealing forearms marked with ancient wolf symbols, power marks that indicated royal bloodline. "Your Majesty," Liora stammered, immediately trying to stand, to bow, to show the proper respect. But her legs were shaking too badly, and she collapsed back onto the bench. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't be—" "Don't apologize," Kaelan said, moving closer. His silver eyes seemed to glow faintly in the shadows. "You have nothing to apologize for. And please, don't stand on ceremony. Not here, not now." He sat on the bench beside her, not close enough to crowd her, but near enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body, the power that seemed to pulse from him like a heartbeat. "I saw what happened in there," he said quietly, "what they did to you." Fresh tears spilled down Leora's cheeks. "Then you saw how pathetic I am, how weak, how—" "I saw," Kaelan interrupted, his voice hardening. "2 cruel wolves publicly humiliate someone who'd done nothing to deserve it. I saw a pack of cowards laugh at someone's pain, and I saw you stand there and take it with more grace and dignity than any of them deserved." Liora stared at him. You don't think I'm weak?" "Weak?" Kaelan turned to face her fully, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. "You walked into a room full of wolves who wanted you to be broken. You stood when they called your name. You held your head high while they mocked you. And then you walked out without giving them the satisfaction of seeing you completely shatter." I shook his head. "That's not weakness, Liora. That's strength." "How do you know my name?" A slight smile touched his lips. "I made it my business to know. The moment that bride started her cruel little speech, I asked my beta to find out who you were, who that bastard was, what had happened between you." "Why would you care?" Kaelan was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful, measured. "Because I know what it's like to be judged for things beyond your control, to have others decide your worth based on surface appearances." He gestured to himself. "I'm 300 years old, Liora. I've seen countless wolves come and go, and in all that time, I've learned that true strength has nothing to do with how powerful your wolf is. It's about how you face adversity, how you treat others, the choices you make when everything falls apart." "My wolf is weak," Liora said, the words bitter in her mouth. "Evan was right about that. I can barely shift. I struggle with transformations that come easily to everyone else. My pack, my former pack, looked at me like I was broken." "Your wolf isn't weak." Kaelan's certainty was absolute. "It's dormant. There's a difference." "How can you possibly know that?" "Because I can sense it." He gestured between them. "Wolves of a certain power level can feel the potential in others. And Liora, what I sense from you isn't weakness. It's something sleeping, something waiting." "Waiting for what?" "For the right catalyst, the right moment." His eyes held hers. "The bond you had with Evan Blackthorn was wrong, fundamentally wrong. A bond with the wrong wolf can suppress your true nature, can keep your wolf from fully emerging. I've seen it before, in wolves who were mated to partners who weren't suited to them. He rejected me, Liora whispered. He severed the bond, which might have been the best thing that could have happened to you. The severing broke the suppression. Now your wolf has a chance to emerge properly. Kaelan paused. Tell me something. Since the rejection, have you felt any changes? Any stirring of power you didn't have before?
Liora thought about it. She had felt something different lately, a restlessness, moments where her wolf felt closer to the surface than it had in years. Maybe, she admitted, sometimes, but I thought it was just the trauma, the pain of the broken bond. It's more than that, Kaelan leaned back slightly. You're starting to wake up to what you really are, and given time, support, the right environment, you could become quite powerful. Why are you telling me this? Liora asked. Why do you care what happens to me? Kaelan was silent for a long moment. Then, honestly, I'm not entirely sure. I came to this wedding as a political courtesy. The Silvercrest family has old ties to the royal court, and refusing the invitation would have caused unnecessary friction. I expected to sit through a boring ceremony, make polite conversation during the reception, and leave. He turned to look at her again, and something in his expression made Leora's pulse quicken. But then I saw you, sitting in the back, trying to be invisible. And when they called you out, when they started their cruel little performance, something in me reacted. My wolf reacted. I wanted to shift right there in that hall and tear them apart for hurting you. You don't even know me. No, Kaelan agreed, but I'd like to, if you'll let me. Leora's breath caught. I don't understand. Neither do I, said Kaelan with a rueful smile, but I've learned to trust my instincts, and right now, every instinct I have is screaming that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, that finding you, meeting you like this, isn't a coincidence. You think fate brought us together? I think, Kaelan said carefully, that the moon goddess works in mysterious ways, and I think that sometimes our darkest moments lead us to exactly where we need to be. Before Liora could respond, Maya's voice cut through the grove. Lee? Where? Oh. She stopped short when she saw the Alpha King sitting beside Liora. Her eyes went wide, and she immediately started to bow. Please don't, Kaelan said, standing. You must be Maya, Leora's friend. Maya blinked. How did you... I have my sources, Kaelan said with a slight smile. Then his expression sobered. Thank you for standing with her in there, for being loyal when others weren't. True friends are rare and valuable. Maya looked between them and Liora, clearly trying to process what was happening. Thank you, Your Majesty. Kaelan turned back to Liora. I should return to the reception. My absence will be noted, and I'd prefer not to cause a diplomatic incident. He paused. But, Liora, I meant what I said. I'd like to see you again, to talk more, if you're willing. Why would you want to see me again? Liora asked, still unable to believe this was happening. Because something tells me you're far more interesting than any of the wolves in that manor. His smile was genuine, warm. And because I think we both have more to learn about why our paths crossed today. He pulled a card from his pocket and handed it to her. My private contact information. Use it if you want to talk, or if you need anything. Anything at all. Liora took the card with shaking fingers. It was heavy paper, embossed with the royal seal. I'm staying at the Northern Reach Estate for the next week. After that, I return to Shadow Moon Castle, but I'm reachable at that number always. Thank you, Liora managed. Kaelan nodded, then looked at Maya. Get her home safely. Make sure she knows that what happened today says nothing about her worth and everything about theirs. With that, he turned and walked back toward the manor, leaving Liora and Maya alone in the grove. As soon as he was out of sight, Maya grabbed Leora's shoulders. What the actual fuck just happened? Did the Alpha King just give you his private contact information? Did he just sit here comforting you? I think so. Liora stared at the card in her hand. Maya, I don't understand any of this.
I do, Maya said, her eyes bright. Lee, the way he looked at you, the way he reacted when you were being humiliated, the moon goddess works in mysterious ways, right? What if... Don't, Liora interrupted. Don't even suggest it. I can't hope for something like that. Not after today, not after Evan proved he's an absolute asshole who threw away the best thing that ever happened to him. Maya, I'm not saying the Alpha King is your fated mate, but I am saying he's interested, genuinely interested, and that's more than most wolves get from royalty. Liora looked down at the card again. In elegant script, it read, Alpha King Kaelan Nightshade, followed by a phone number. What do I do? She whispered. You go home, you process what happened today, both the bad and the unexpected good, and then, when you're ready, you call him. Maya squeezed her hand. Because, Lee, I have a feeling your story isn't ending with Evan's rejection. I think it might just be beginning.
Liora didn't call for 3 days. She spent those days alternating between reliving the humiliation at the wedding and replaying her conversation with Kaelan in the grove. Every time she looked at his card, her heart raced with a mixture of fear and anticipation. What could she possibly have to offer someone like him? The Alpha King could have anyone he wanted. Powerful she-wolves from ancient families. Wolves with impeccable bloodlines and strong wolf forms. Why would he be interested in her? Because he saw something in you that Evan was too blind to see, Maya said on the 3rd evening, when she found Liora staring at the card for the 100th time. Lee, you're overthinking this. He gave you his number. He told you to call. So call. And say what? Hi, thanks for the pity in the garden? It wasn't pity, Maya said firmly. I was there. I saw his face. That wasn't pity, Lee. That was interest. Genuine, unmistakable interest. You're reading too much into it. And you're not reading enough. Maya grabbed the card and held it up. The Alpha King doesn't give his private number to just anyone. He doesn't follow random she-wolves into gardens. He doesn't sit with them and talk about fate and destiny. Lee, he felt something. Even if you're too scared to admit it, he felt something. Liora was quiet for a long moment. What if I call and he doesn't remember me? What if it was just a kind gesture and he's already forgotten? Then you'll know, and you can move on. But what if it was more? What if he's been waiting for you to call? Maya set the card in Leora's hand. You'll never know unless you try. That night, alone in her apartment, Liora finally worked up the courage. She dialed the number with shaking fingers, half hoping it would go to voicemail so she could hang up without actually having to speak. Instead, he answered on the 2nd ring. Liora? His voice was warm, pleased, like he'd been hoping she would call. I was beginning to think you'd decided against contacting me. You knew it was me? I gave that number only to you. Who else would it be? She could hear the smile in his voice. How are you? That's a foolish question, I know, but I've been thinking about you, about what happened. I'm processing, Liora admitted. It's been a difficult few days. I can imagine. What they did was unconscionable. I've been debating whether to formally censure Evan Blackthorn's pack for allowing such a public display. Please don't, Liora said quickly. I don't want to cause problems. I just want to move on. Moving on is admirable, but they should face consequences for their cruelty. Kaelan paused. However, if you prefer I don't intervene, I'll respect your wishes. This is your hurt to address how you see fit. The fact that he asked, that he gave her the choice, meant more than Liora could express. Thank you, she said softly. You don't need to thank me for treating you with basic respect. His voice gentled. Liora, I'm glad you called. I was hoping you would. I can't stop thinking about our conversation in the garden, about what I sensed from you, about my dormant wolf, about everything. Your strength, your dignity, the potential I feel radiating from you. He took a breath. This may be forward, but would you be willing to meet with me, properly, I mean? Not in a garden while you're processing trauma, but somewhere we can actually talk, get to know each other. Iliora's heart hammered. Like a date?
If you're comfortable calling it that, yes. If not, call it two wolves having a conversation over dinner. Whatever makes you more comfortable. Why? The question burst out before she could stop it. Why me? You could have anyone. Why would you want to spend time with someone like me? Someone like you? Kaelan repeated. You mean someone intelligent, resilient, and far stronger than she gives herself credit for? Someone who intrigues me more than anyone has in decades. His voice softened. Liora, I'm 300 years old. I've met thousands of wolves. Most of them blend together after a while. But you're different, and I want to understand why. I'm not special, Liora whispered. I disagree, vehemently. There was a pause. But I understand that you may not see it yet. Perhaps that's something we can explore together, if you're willing to take a chance on having dinner with me. Every rational part of Liora's brain screamed that this was too fast, too much, too good to be true. She'd just been publicly humiliated by one wolf who claimed to care about her. Why would she risk her heart again so soon? But something deeper than rational thought urged her to say yes. Some instinct that whispered this was important, that Kaelan was important. Okay, she heard herself say. Yes, I'd like that. Tomorrow night? Kaelan asked, and she could hear the smile in his voice. There's a restaurant in the city, Moonshadow. It's quiet, private, we can talk without interruption. I know it. It was one of the most exclusive restaurants in the territory. I'd always wanted to go, but could never afford it. Perfect. Shall I pick you up at 7? I can meet you there, Liora said quickly. The thought of the Alpha King coming to her tiny apartment was mortifying. Nonsense. Text me your address, I'll collect you at 7. His tone left no room for argument, but it wasn't demanding, just certain. And Liora, don't overthink this. It's just dinner, just two people getting to know each other. Nothing more complicated than that. After they hung up, Liora sat in stunned silence. She had a date with the Alpha King. Maya's scream of excitement when Liora told her could be heard 3 territories over. Liora changed outfits 6 times before settling on a simple black dress that was elegant without being too formal. She'd pulled her hair into a loose updo, leaving a few strands to frame her face. Minimal jewelry, just enough makeup to hide the fact that she'd barely slept. When the knock came at 7 exactly, her hands were shaking so badly she could barely open the door. Kaelan stood in the hallway looking devastating in dark slacks and a charcoal shirt that brought out the silver of his eyes. He held a single white rose, not a bouquet, just one perfect flower. For you, he said, offering it with a smile. You look beautiful, Liora. Thank you. You look very nice too. She winced internally at the inadequate words, but Kaelan's smile only widened. Shall we? The car waiting downstairs was sleek and expensive, with a driver who kept his eyes straight ahead and said nothing. Kaelan held the door for her, waiting until she was settled before joining her in the back seat. Nervous? He asked as they pulled into traffic. Terrified, Liora admitted. Good. So am I. She looked at him skeptically. You're the Alpha King. What could you possibly have to be nervous about? Making a good impression on someone I'm interested in. His smile was self-deprecating. Being 300 years old doesn't make dating any less nerve-wracking. If anything, it makes it worse. I've had a lot of time to develop bad habits and strange quirks. Like what? Well, I'm told I can be somewhat imperious, accustomed to being obeyed without question. I also have a tendency to work too much and forget to eat, and I apparently snore, though I refuse to believe my beta on that count. Liora found herself laughing despite her nerves. Those don't sound so terrible. Give it time. I'm sure I'll reveal more character flaws as the evening progresses. He turned to look at her. What about you? Fair warning of your quirks? I'm not sure I have any interesting enough to warn about, Liora said. I'm pretty boring, actually. I work at a bookstore, or did before I was fired. Fired? She'd forgotten he wouldn't know about that. After Evan rejected me, I couldn't work effectively. My boss let me go, said I was bringing down morale with my energy. Kaelan's expression darkened.
That's illegal. You can't fire someone for processing trauma. It's fine. I've been looking for something new anyway. It's not fine, but I'll let it go for now. He made a mental note. She could see it in his eyes. Continue. Tell me more about yourself. So she did. She told him about growing up in a small pack, about her love of books and quiet evenings, about her friendship with Maya, which had sustained her through the rejection, about her dreams of traveling, of seeing places beyond their territory. And Kaelan listened, really listened, not just waiting for his turn to talk, but asking questions, making connections, genuinely interested in her life. "You've never left pack territory?" asked Kaelan at one point. "Never had a reason to, or the money. Books are cheaper than plane tickets." "That needs to change," Kaelan said decisively. "There's a whole world out there, Liora. You should see it. Maybe someday. Maybe sooner than you think." They arrived at Moonshadow, where the maitre d' practically fell over himself greeting the Alpha King. They were shown to a private room, intimate with candles and soft music and a view of the city lights below. Over dinner, food so delicious, Liora almost forgot to be nervous. The conversation deepened. "Can I ask you something?" Liora said as they waited for dessert. "Why haven't you taken a mate? In 300 years, surely you've met someone."
Kaelan was quiet for a moment. "I've met many someones. Wolves who would have been suitable politically. Wolves my advisors encouraged me to choose. But Liora, there's a difference between suitable and right. Between a choice made for duty and one made because you can't imagine anything else. You're waiting for a fated mate." I was. For a very long time, I believed the moon goddess would send me my destined one, but as the centuries passed and no mate appeared, I began to think perhaps I wasn't meant to have one, that my destiny was to rule alone. That sounds lonely. It was. It is. His silver eyes found hers. But then I met you, and for the first time in decades, I felt possibility. "We just met," Liora protested. "You can't know that I don't know anything for certain," Kaelan interrupted gently, "but I know what I feel when I'm near you. I know that my wolf recognizes something in you, and I know that I want to explore whatever this is between us. What if there's nothing between us? What if you're wrong? Then we'll discover that together, and we'll part as friends." He reached across the table, offering his hand. "But Liora, I don't think I'm wrong. Do you?" Slowly, Liora placed her hand in his. The moment their skin connected, she felt it, a spark of energy, a sense of rightness that she'd never experienced with Evan. Her wolf, dormant for so long, suddenly surged forward, pressing against her consciousness, eager and interested. Interested in him. Kaelan's eyes widened slightly. "You felt that. What was it?" "Recognition," he said softly. "Our wolves recognizing each other. Liora, I've experienced the mate bond before. Witnessed it, in others. What I just felt when you touched me, it's similar. Very similar. But I was already bonded to Evan. The bond was severed. It's not possible to have a second chance mate, is it?" "It's rare," Kaelan admitted, "but not impossible, especially if the first bond was wrong, fundamentally wrong." His thumb brushed across her knuckles. "The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes, Liora, but sometimes she allows us to make our own choices, and sometimes those choices lead us away from our true path, until something forces us back onto it. Like a public humiliation at a wedding? Like a public humiliation that brought you to a garden where I happened to be," Kaelan smiled. "Fate works in mysterious ways." They talked for hours more, until the restaurant staff was clearly waiting for them to leave. Kaelan apologized profusely and left an enormous tip before escorting Liora back to the car. On the drive home, Liora felt lighter than she had in months. Being with Kaelan was easy, comfortable, like coming home after a long journey. When they reached her apartment building, Kaelan walked her to her door. "I had a wonderful evening. I'd like to do this again, if you're willing." "I'd like that too," Liora said. Then, gathering her courage,
Kaelan, what you said about our wolves recognizing each other, do you really think, could we really be fated mates? He cupped her face gently. I think it's possible, more than possible. But Liora, I don't want to rush you into anything. You've just been through a devastating rejection. You need time to heal, to discover who you are outside of the bond you had with Evan. And if I want to discover it with you, his smile was brilliant. Then I'll be here, every step of the way. He leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, chaste, sweet, but charged with promise. Sleep well, Liora. I'll call you tomorrow. After he left, Liora leaned against her closed door, her heart racing. She'd gone from the lowest point of her life to potentially finding her true mate in the span of days. It seemed impossible, too good to be true. But as she felt her wolf settling contentedly in her chest, more present, more peaceful than it had been in years, she allowed herself to hope.
Maybe fate really did work in mysterious ways. Maybe her story with Evan had to end so her real story could begin. And maybe, just maybe, the Alpha King was right where he was supposed to be, right where she was supposed to be, together. Over the next 2 weeks, Liora and Kaelan saw each other almost every day. Sometimes it was formal, dinners at nice restaurants, a concert at the symphony hall, a gallery opening that Kaelan had been obligated to attend and asked her to join him for. Other times it was simple, walks through the forest, coffee at her favorite cafe, evenings at her apartment where they talked for hours about everything and nothing. And with each passing day, Liora felt herself changing. Her wolf was waking up, not gradually, but in noticeable surges. She could feel it getting stronger, pressing closer to the surface. Shifts that had been painful and incomplete were becoming easier. Her senses were sharpening. Her strength was increasing. It's the bond, explained Kaelan one evening as they walked through the forest near her apartment. Being near your true mate feeds your wolf, helps it emerge properly. So you're sure now that we're fated mates? I've been sure since that first touch at the restaurant. He took her hand, threading their fingers together. But I wanted to give you time to be sure too, to choose this without feeling pressured. Liora stopped walking and turned to face him. Kaelan, I'm sure. I've been sure since the second date, if I'm honest. Being with you feels right in a way being with Evan never did. My wolf recognizes you. I recognize you. Then perhaps it's time to discuss making this official. The bonding ceremony? Eventually, yes, but first there are some practicalities. Kaelan's expression grew serious. Liora, if we continue this, if we formalize our bond, you'll become queen. There will be expectations, responsibilities, wolves who will question whether you're ready for such a role. Are you trying to talk me out of this? Never, but I want you to go into it with your eyes open. He cupped her face. Being my mate means being a target. There will be wolves who resent you, who challenge you, who try to prove you're not worthy. It won't be easy. Nothing worth having ever is, said Liora. Kaelan, I'm not afraid of the work. I'm not afraid of the challenges. The only thing I'm afraid of is losing this, losing you. You won't lose me, he said fiercely. Liora, I've waited 300 years for you. Now that I've found you, nothing and no one will take you from me. He kissed her then, not the gentle kisses they'd shared before, but something deeper, claiming, a promise and a declaration all at once. When they broke apart, Liora's power marks, faint silver lines she'd noticed appearing on her arms over the past week, were glowing. It's happening, Kaelan said, his voice filled with awe. Your power is awakening. Liora, your marks, they're the marks of ancient blood, first wolf blood. But that's impossible. I'm nobody. My family has no special lineage. Dormant bloodlines can skip generations, sometimes for centuries, but they always resurface when the time is right, when the right bond awakens them. He traced one of the glowing marks with his finger. You're not nobody, Liora. You never were. You carry the blood of the first wolves, the original shifters. That's why your wolf was suppressed when you were bonded to Evan.
His bloodline wasn't compatible with yours, but mine is. Because you're first blood too? Exactly. Our bloodlines recognize each other, call to each other. He stepped back slightly. Liora, I think you're ready to shift, fully shift, not the incomplete transformations you've been experiencing. Now? Why not? We're in the forest, it's a full moon, and your wolf is so close to the surface I can feel it. His eyes began to glow silver. Let me help you. Let's shift together.
Fear and excitement warred in Liora's chest, but the excitement won. "Okay," she said. "Together." They moved apart, giving each other space. Kaelan shifted first, his transformation smooth and effortless, bones and muscle restructuring in seconds. His wolf form was magnificent, massive and black, with those same silver eyes, radiating ancient power. Then it was Liora's turn. She closed her eyes and reached for her wolf. The spirit that had been hiding for so long rose to meet her, eager and ready. "Finally," her wolf said, "let me out. Let me run with him." The shift, when it came, was nothing like before. No pain, no grinding bones or incomplete transformations. This was fluid, natural, like slipping into warm water. When she opened her eyes, she was on 4 legs. She looked down at herself and gasped, or would have if wolves could gasp. Her fur was silver, pure, shimmering silver, like starlight made solid. She was large, much larger than she'd ever been, powerful, strong, beautiful. Kaelan's wolf moved closer, circling her, assessing. When he was satisfied, he pressed his muzzle against hers in a gesture of affection and recognition. "Perfect," his voice echoed in her mind through their mate bond. "You're absolutely perfect. I knew you would be." Liora's wolf responded with a surge of joy and confidence she'd never felt before. This was her true self, strong, capable, everything she'd always been but had been unable to express. Kaelan threw his head back and howled, a sound of triumph and claim. Liora joined him, their voices intertwining, announcing to every wolf within miles that the Alpha King had found his mate. Then they ran. They raced through the forest like shadows, 2 silver-touched wolves moving in perfect synchronization. Liora was fast, faster than she'd ever dreamed possible. She leapt over fallen trees, navigated dense undergrowth with ease. Her senses painted the world in vivid detail. And through it all, Kaelan ran beside her, not leading, not following, beside her, true equals. When they finally stopped, breathless and exhilarated, Liora shifted back to human form. The transformation was effortless, her body knowing instinctively how to move between forms now. Kaelan shifted too, immediately pulling her into his arms. "You were magnificent," he said against her hair. "Everything I knew you would be and more." "I've never felt anything like that," Liora said, her voice shaking with emotion. "The power, the freedom, the strength. Kaelan, I had no idea I could be this." "Now the whole realm will know," he said. "Your silver wolf is a sign of royal blood, Liora. The first wolves all had silver or white fur. When the packs see you, they'll understand exactly who and what you are." "What am I?" "Mine," he said simply. "My fated mate, my future queen, the other half of my soul." Liora looked up at him, this ancient and powerful king who'd seen her worth when no one else had, who'd followed her into a garden and offered comfort instead of pity, who'd waited patiently while she healed, never pushing, always supporting. "I'm ready," she said. "For what?" "For all of it. The bonding ceremony, becoming queen, building a life with you." She cupped his face. "Kaelan, you've shown me who I really am. You've given me back my power, my confidence, my future. I want to bond with you. I want this." His eyes blazed with emotion. "Are you absolutely certain?" "There's no rush, Liora. We can wait as long as you need. I'm certain. I've never been more certain of anything." He kissed her then, deeper than before, a claiming kiss, a promise. When they broke apart, both of them were glowing, power marks blazing bright, the mate bond humming between them like a living thing. 2 weeks, Kaelan said. "I'll arrange everything. The ceremony, the gathering of the packs, all of it. In 2 weeks, you'll be my bonded mate and recognized queen." 2 weeks, Liora agreed. As they walked back through the forest, hand in hand, Liora thought about how much had changed. Just weeks ago, she'd been at her lowest point, broken, rejected, humiliated in front of everyone who mattered. But that humiliation had led her to a garden, to Kaelan, to her true destiny. Evan had rejected her, thinking she was weak, but he'd actually set her free to find her real mate, to become the wolf, the woman she was always meant to be, a queen.
The 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Seamstresses created Leora's ceremonial gown, white silk embroidered with silver thread that matched her power marks. Kaelan's beta, Elias Ravencroft, coached her on protocol and ceremony procedures. Maya threw herself into preparations with enthusiasm, declaring herself maid of honor and taking her duties very seriously. "You only get bonded to an Alpha King once," she said when Liora suggested she was overdoing it. "We're making sure everything is perfect." Invitations went out to every pack in the realm. This wasn't just a bonding ceremony, it was a coronation. The packs would come to witness Liora accept her role as queen, to pledge their loyalty, to see the Alpha King's mate for themselves. The ceremony was to be held at Shadow Moon Castle, Kaelan's ancestral home in the northern reaches. Liora had visited twice during the preparation period, and each time she was awed by the ancient beauty of the place. This would be her home now, her castle. The thought was still surreal. "Nervous?" Maya asked on the morning of the ceremony as she helped Liora into her gown. "Terrified," Liora admitted. "What if I mess up the vows? What if I trip walking down the aisle? What if the packs reject me as queen?" "Then Kaelan will handle it. That's what mates do. They handle things together." She stepped back to admire her handiwork. "Lee, you look like every fairy tale queen ever imagined. Absolutely stunning." Liora studied herself in the mirror. The gown was magnificent, yes. Her hair was arranged in an intricate style woven with silver ribbons. Her power marks glowed softly against her skin, visible even through the delicate fabric. But more than the external beauty, she looked confident, certain, like someone ready to step into her destiny. A knock on the door. Elias's voice. "It's almost time, my lady." Liora took a deep breath, then another. "Let's do this."
The great hall of Shadow Moon Castle had been transformed for the occasion. Every surface gleamed. Hundreds of candles provided flickering light, and wolves, hundreds of wolves filled the space, representatives from every major pack in the realm. As Liora waited in the antechamber, she could hear the assembled packs through the walls, their voices creating a low hum of anticipation and speculation. "Ready?" Maya asked, squeezing her hand. "Ready," Liora confirmed. The doors opened, music swelled, ancient wolf songs that made the hair on her arms stand up, and Liora began the long walk down the aisle. Every eye turned to watch her. Alphas from the major territories stood with their delegations. Members of the Council of Elders sat in places of honor, and all of them stared as Liora passed, assessing, judging, measuring her worth. But Liora kept her eyes forward, on the figure waiting for her at the altar. Kaelan stood before the High Elder, magnificent in his ceremonial robes, black and silver, marking him as Alpha King. When he saw her, his entire face lit up with a smile meant only for her. "You're beautiful," his voice whispered in her mind through their growing bond. "And you're mine."
Yours, she agreed, her heart soaring. She reached the altar. Kaelan took her hands, and immediately she felt the familiar spark of connection, stronger now than it had been even days ago. The High Elder raised his hands, and silence fell. "We are gathered in the presence of the Moon Goddess," he intoned, "to witness the bonding of Alpha King Kaelan Nightshade and Liora Ashwood, two souls fated by destiny, two wolves marked by ancient blood, two hearts choosing each other freely." He turned to Kaelan. "Alpha King, do you accept this she-wolf as your bonded mate, your partner in rule, your equal in all things?" "I do," Kaelan said, his voice ringing clear through the hall. "I accept Liora as my mate, my queen, my everything. I pledge my life, my power, my heart to her from this day until the end of days." The elder turned to Liora. "Liora Ashwood, do you accept this Alpha as your bonded mate? Do you accept the responsibility of ruling beside him, of becoming queen to all wolfkind?" Liora's voice came out strong and sure. "I do. I accept Kaelan as my mate, my partner, my chosen one. I pledge myself to him and to the realm we'll rule together from this day forward." "Then speak your personal vows." Kaelan went first. "Liora, when I found you in that garden, broken and hurting, something in me recognized something in you. Not your pain, but your strength. Not your defeat, but your dignity. You were at your lowest moment, and yet you held yourself with the grace of a queen." His thumbs brushed over her knuckles. "I vow to always see you as you truly are, strong, beautiful, worthy of every good thing. I vow to stand beside you through every challenge, to support your growth, to honor your choices. I vow to love you not just as my mate, but as my equal partner in all things. From this day forward, you are my heart, my home, my everything." Tears pricked Liora's eyes, but she blinked them back and found her voice. "Kaelan, you found me when I thought I was lost. You saw worth in me when I couldn't see it in myself. You didn't just comfort me in that garden, you showed me a different future, a possibility I'd never imagined." She squeezed his hands. "I vow to be worthy of your faith in me, to grow into this role with courage and grace, to stand beside you as a true partner, and I vow to love you not because fate chose us, though it did, but because I choose you. Every day, with my whole heart, I choose you." The High Elder smiled. "The blood oath?" An attendant brought forward a ceremonial knife, ancient and ornate. Kaelan took it first, making a clean cut across his palm. Blood welled, dark and rich. He handed the knife to Liora, who did the same. They joined hands, palm to palm, blood mingling. Power exploded between them, not painful but overwhelming, intense. Liora felt the bond snap into place, not the weak thread she'd had with Evan, but a steel cable, unbreakable, eternal. She could feel Kaelan's emotions flooding into her, his love, his pride, his absolute devotion, his joy at finally finding his mate after centuries of waiting. And he could feel hers, her awe, her certainty, her growing love, her determination to be worthy of this gift. Their wolves rose together, merging in a way that transcended physical touch, silver and black, ancient and powerful, recognizing each other as true mates. The power marks on both their bodies blazed bright white, visible even in the candlelit hall. Then, as hundreds of wolves watched in awe, those marks began to spread, new patterns appearing, covering both Kaelan and Liora with intricate designs that glowed like stars. "The goddess blesses this union," the High Elder breathed.
Behold, the marks of true mates, of destined rulers. When the light finally faded, Liora and Kaelan stood transformed, still themselves, but more, enhanced, completed. The High Elder's voice rang out. I present to you Alpha King Kaelan Nightshade and his bonded mate, Queen Liora Nightshade, rulers of all wolf territories. The hall erupted.
Every wolf present dropped to one knee, heads bowed. Even the ancient alphas of the great packs knelt, acknowledging their new queen. All hail the Alpha King, someone shouted. All hail Queen Liora, another voice joined. The cry was taken up by hundreds of wolves, their voices shaking the very stones of the castle. Liora stood beside Kaelan, his hand still clasped in hers, and looked out over the kneeling masses. These were her people now, her responsibility. She felt no fear, only determination. Rise, she said, her voice carrying easily through the hall, a queen's voice, backed by power and authority she'd only just discovered. Rise, and let us celebrate not just a bonding, but a new era for all our kind. The wolves rose, and celebration began in earnest. Almost. Before the first toast could be made, there was a commotion at the entrance. The great doors, which should have been closed after all the guests had arrived, swung open, and through them walked three figures who definitely hadn't been invited. Evan Blackthorn, Seraphina Silvercrest, and Seraphina's father, Marcus Silvercrest, beta of the Silver Moon Pack. The hall fell silent. Every eye turned to the intruders. Kaelan's expression went cold. This is a private ceremony. You weren't invited. We invoke the right of challenge, Marcus Silvercrest announced, his voice carrying through the suddenly silent hall. It was an ancient law, one rarely used. Any wolf could challenge a newly crowned queen's right to rule if they had legitimate cause. On what grounds? Elias demanded, stepping forward, his own wolf rising protectively. On the grounds that Liora Ashwood is not fit to be queen, Seraphina said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. She was rejected by her first mate for being weak. She has no pack standing, no established lineage. She's a nobody pretending to be royalty. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This was dangerous. If enough wolves agreed with the challenge, it could destabilize Liora's claim before she'd even taken her throne. Kaelan growled, a sound that made every wolf in the hall freeze. You dare? Wait. Liora placed a hand on his arm, stopping him. Through their bond, she felt his rage, his desire to protect her, but this was her fight. She stepped forward, away from Kaelan's protective presence, and faced the three who'd come to challenge her. You're right, she said calmly. I was rejected. Evan broke our bond because he believed I was weak, because my wolf was dormant and he was too blind to see the reason why. She looked directly at Evan, who couldn't quite meet her eyes. But that rejection was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it freed me to find my true mate, to discover my real power, to become who I was always meant to be. She raised her arms, and the power marks blazed to life, brilliant silver light that filled the hall. I carry the blood of the first wolves, ancient and pure. My lineage doesn't need to be established because it predates all of yours. My wolf was dormant because I was bonded to someone incompatible, someone unworthy. She heard her eyes find Seraphina's. You mocked me for being weak. You humiliated me at your wedding, thinking you'd broken me. But all you did was push me toward my destiny, toward the wolf who was actually meant for me, toward the power that was waiting to wake. She turned to address the entire hall now. I am Liora Nightshade, bonded mate of Alpha King Kaelan, carrier of first blood, and your queen, and I welcome any wolf who wishes to challenge my right to this position to step forward now, face me in the traditional way, prove I'm unworthy. Silence. Not a single wolf moved.
because what stood before them wasn't the weak she-wolf Evan had rejected. This was a queen in full power, marked by the moon goddess herself, radiating ancient magic. "That's what I thought," Liora said quietly. She turned to Evan, Seraphina, and Marcus. "You came here to humiliate me again, to prove I didn't belong. Instead, you've given me the chance to prove to everyone exactly who I am. So thank you, truly." "This isn't over," Marcus Silvercrest said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Oh, it is," Kaelan said, moving to stand beside Liora, his arm wrapped around her waist, protective, possessive, proud. "And if any of you set foot in this castle again without invitation, it will be considered an act of aggression against the crown. Do I make myself clear?" Marcus paled. Challenging a queen was one thing, threatening the Alpha King was suicide. "Perfectly clear, Your Majesty," he said stiffly. The three of them turned and left, their defeat obvious in every step. As the doors closed behind them, the hall erupted in cheers. The wolves who'd witnessed Liora's declaration, her strength, her refusal to be cowed under a challenge, howled their approval. "All hail Queen Liora!" someone shouted. "Long live the Queen!" The cry was taken up by hundreds of voices. Kaelan pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. "You were magnificent," he murmured. "Absolutely magnificent." "I meant what I said. That rejection was the best thing that ever happened to me. It brought me here, to you, to this." "Then I suppose I should thank Evan Blackthorn," Kaelan said with dark humor, "for being foolish enough to let you go." "Never thank him, but we can acknowledge that his mistake led to our destiny." The celebration continued long into the night. Wolves from every pack came to pledge their loyalty to their new queen. Some were skeptical at first, but after witnessing her power, her strength, her refusal to be cowed under a challenge, they were convinced. This was their queen, strong, worthy, chosen by fate itself.
Liora stood on the balcony of the royal chambers, looking out over the castle grounds as the sun set behind the mountains. 6 months as queen, and she still sometimes couldn't believe this was her life. Behind her, she heard Kaelan enter, felt his presence through their bond before his arms wrapped around her waist. "Busy day?" he asked, pressing a kiss to her neck. The Riverdale pack had a border dispute with the Mountain Peak Wolves. Took 3 hours to mediate, but we reached a compromise both sides can accept. She leaned back against him. "Being queen is exhausting, but you're good at it. Natural, even." His hands splayed across her stomach. "The packs respect you. Some even fear you a little, after what you did to that rogue alpha who tried to challenge your authority." Liora smiled at the memory. The alpha had assumed the new queen would be an easy target. He'd learned very quickly and painfully that she was anything but. "I heard from Maya today. She's been seeing that beta from the coastal pack. She sounds happy." "Good. She deserves happiness, as do you." Kaelan turned her in his arms. "Are you happy, Liora? Truly?" "Deliriously," she said honestly. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real, that I get to wake up next to you every day, that I'm actually good at being queen, that my life turned out like this. All because you were brave enough to go to a wedding where you knew you'd be hurt. All because you were kind enough to follow me into a garden when I ran." They kissed, slow and sweet and full of the love that had grown between them over these months. When they broke apart, Kaelan's expression was serious. "There's something I want to ask you." "What?" "The council has been pushing for an heir. They think it would stabilize the succession, strengthen our reign." Liora's breath caught. "Are you asking if I want children?" "I'm asking if you're ready, if we're ready." His hand found hers, threading their fingers together. "There's no rush. I just want to know what you're thinking." Liora thought about it, about tiny wolves with silver eyes and black fur, about teaching them to shift, to rule, to be kind and strong and worthy of their legacy. "I think," she said slowly, "that I like that.
Not right away, maybe, but someday soon. Kaelan's smile was brilliant. Someday soon, then. They stood together on the balcony as the stars came out, two wolves who'd found each other in the most unexpected way, who'd built a love from pain and humiliation and unexpected kindness. Somewhere in another territory, Evan Blackthorn was living with his choice, with the knowledge that he'd rejected a queen, that he'd let go of something precious because he'd been too blind to see its worth. But Liora didn't think about him anymore, didn't spare him even a moment of her thoughts, because she'd learned the most important lesson. Sometimes our worst moments lead us to our best destinies. Sometimes rejection is actually freedom, and sometimes the right person sees us exactly when we need to be seen. Liora had found her person, her mate, her king, and together they'd rule with wisdom, strength, and a love that had been forged in fire and emerged stronger than steel. She was no longer Liora Ashwood, the weak she-wolf who'd been rejected and humiliated. She was Queen Liora Nightshade, bonded mate of the Alpha King, carrier of ancient blood, and ruler of all wolfkind. And anyone who underestimated her learned the same lesson Evan had learned too late. She was never weak. She was just waiting for the right moment and the right mate to show the world exactly how powerful she'd always been. The end. Thank you for listening to Liora and Kaelan's love story. If you enjoyed it, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what you thought. Should I continue their story? Would you like to hear about Maya finding her own mate? Or perhaps what happened to Evan and Serafina after their failed challenge? Let me know below, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss a new story.